The iPhone 6s and Galaxy S7 are both phenomenal smartphones, but how do they compare? Let's find out in this video. Both of these phones are made out of absolutely premium materials, the iPhone being more of an aluminum unibody design, while the Galaxy S7 uses an aluminum mid-frame sandwiched between two pieces of Gorilla Glass 4. Both phones feel very, very sturdy, and they feel like $800 phones. So as far as build quality goes, these phones are 100% matched. I don't think either are built any better than the other. However, if you asked me which design I tend to prefer better, I would say I like the Galaxy S7 design slightly more. I think both of them are really well designed and they're both beautiful phones, but I tend to actually prefer the Galaxy S7 in terms of overall design. Both phones also have excellent cameras, both of them being 12 megapixel, but the Galaxy S7's is f1.7, I believe, so photos will look better in that they will have a more shallow depth of field, so if you're into that kind of photography, you can definitely achieve that effect pretty easily under most scenarios. And the iPhone tends to have more accurate colors. The Galaxy S7 is a little more punchy in terms of pictures. I'll have some comparison photos cycling through on the screen right about now so you guys can see what I mean. But both cameras are really well. Both cameras perform really, really well. If you asked me which one I would prefer, I think both of them are really great, but the Galaxy S7 kind of looks more punchy, and I tend to like that. But again, both phones have absolutely excellent cameras. I do think Apple is falling a little bit behind the competition in the competition of other smartphones. Their camera was once the best in its class by a large margin, but now it's kind of on par with the rest of them rather than being vastly superior. So yeah, that is basically something to keep in mind. Also, the camera does not protrude quite as much as on the Galaxy S7 as it does on the iPhone. So if that matters to you, that is definitely something that you should consider. So as far as displays go, the Galaxy S7 is rocking a 2560 by 1440 Super AMOLED display, which works out to, I believe, 577 ppi. The screen is 5.1 inches. And on the iPhone, we have a 1304 by 750 display at 4.7 inches, which gives you 326 pixels per inch, which is the same as all previous iPhones, beginning with the iPhone 4. So as far as displays go, it really depends. I mean, both displays are more than adequate for the purpose, but I tend to like the higher resolution of the Samsung Galaxy S7. It's just, I tend to prefer, while I like the higher resolution just because you can't make out the pixels. And if you have good eyes, you can make out the pixels on the iPhone. Again, both resolutions are high enough to the point where it doesn't really matter that much, and the lower resolution screen on the iPhone allows it to perform slightly better in most scenarios. So both displays are really well. Of course, this being an IPS panel versus an AMOLED, this one is going to be more accurate in terms of colors, and this one's going to be more punchy, more saturated, in other words. I tend to like the Samsung display mainly because Samsung phones have always had great displays. I mean, starting with like the S3, I mean, even the display on that is pretty darn good. I like the higher resolution. I tend to like the punchiness of the colors, but then again, the iPhone's display is also really, really good. The color reproduction on both of these is actually really, really good. And of course, the viewing angles and all of that. So which display do I prefer? The Galaxy S7's overall, but again, the iPhone's lower resolution display can help it out in some scenarios. And also with app development, I mean, it's easier for Apple and iOS developers to develop for one screen scaling size. And they actually have more than one, but you know what I mean. So that's how it goes for displays. One thing I've always admired about iPhones is their buttery smooth performance in most scenarios. This is one area where the iPhone tends to be better. The iPhone, of course, has the 1.85 gigahertz Apple A9 with 2 gigabytes of RAM. This A9 SoC is quite the powerhouse. If you look at Geekbench scores and the architecture, it's just a very well designed SoC that performs very well. These phones are about on par in terms of performance, but the A9 was quite a nice chip. Of course, the Galaxy S7 is housing Qualcomm's newest Snapdragon 820, which is a monumental performance and overall design increase from the Snapdragon 810, which I think was an absolutely terrible SoC and ruined most of the phones of last year. But these phones are pretty much on par in terms of raw CPU power. However, in terms of the OS fluidity, I generally find that the iOS or the iPhone 6s performs slightly better. The Galaxy S7 is definitely the smoothest Samsung phone I've ever used, but the iPhone tends to not have quite as much micro lag, and I haven't really seen that much lag with this phone, but it is still there in some parts. So generally, like I said, the iPhone is going to perform better throughout day-to-day tasks just because of the lightweightness and the less overhead that iOS brings. So that is one area where the iPhone definitely shines, is general performance. Battery life is an important topic for most smartphone buyers, and I find that the overall battery life on the iPhone 6s versus the Galaxy S7 is more or less the same. The Galaxy S7 will get you by definitely throughout the day, unlike its predecessor, the Galaxy S6, and the iPhone will too. But given my usage, since I'm not on my phone all day long, standby time is very important. And the iPhone generally has much better standby time. And I can basically have the iPhone unplugged, I can go to bed at night, wake up like 8 or 9 hours later, and it will only have lost like 2 or 3%. However, I did the same test with the Samsung Galaxy S7, and it lost 13%. So Android still has a lot of catching up to do in terms of standby time. The iPhone definitely shines there, and for my use cases, I have noticed that the iPhone has a lot more percentage than at the end of the day than the Galaxy S7 does. However, there actually is one trick that I do want to show you. If you go ahead and download Greenify, which, let's see if I can find it, what you want to do is go into your settings and turn on aggressive doze, as you can see right here. That will drastically improve the standby time on the Galaxy S7, and I assume many other Android smartphones. I have seen a very nice improvement there. This phone has been sitting for more or less 2 hours now, and it's only lost about 2 or 3% instead of 3 or 4% an hour. So yeah, shout out to Hector that messaged me while I was making this video. But yeah, generally the iPhone has better standby time. The S7 may have equal or better usage time. So both batteries are good, but the iPhone, I think, has the slight edge here in my use case. Another edge that the iPhone 6s has over the Samsung Galaxy S7 is the Fingerprint Reader. Of course, the iPhone 6s has the Touch ID 2.0 Fingerprint Reader, and the Galaxy S7 has an improved Fingerprint Reader from the Galaxy S6. However, the iPhone's is still a little bit faster, so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that now. So the Galaxy S7, I would say they're about more or less the same speed. I generally think the iPhone's is a little bit faster. That was pretty quick though. Let me do it again. Maybe much improved. As you can see, let me do that again. So as you can see, the iPhone kind of unlocked a little slightly faster that time. So they're both pretty fast, but one area of the fingerprint sensor that the iPhone does have the edge on is accuracy. The iPhone, I have never had it miss my print ever, and I've had a lot of iPhones, so that is nice. Whereas the Galaxy S7, I've had it miss my print once or twice or 3 times while I've had it, so the accuracy is a little worse. Both fingerprint readers are pretty good though. Another thing I want to mention is that the iPhone does have 3D touch, so that could be a plus or not depending on who you are, but the convenience of 3D touch is pretty nice. So the Galaxy S7 has no such pressure sensitive screen. This may add, a decent amount of functionality for you, or it may not, but figured it was worth mentioning since 3D touch is a trademark feature of the iPhone 6s. Which brings me to my last point in this video. Of course, the iPhone runs iOS and the Galaxy S7 runs Android. This is the AT&T branded version. So the last advantage that the iPhone has is that the iPhone will get software updates far earlier than the Galaxy S7 will. iOS 9.3 is due to be released in a couple of days, so that is always nice to see quick software updates directly from Apple, whereas on the Galaxy S7, you have to wait for Google to push out the update, then you have to wait for Samsung to add TouchWiz to it, then you have to wait for AT&T to add their stuff to it, and then you have to wait for the OTA update, which can take months and months and months to happen. So the iPhone will get not only faster software updates, but it will also be supported longer. Most Android phones are not supported for more than 18 to 24 months, whereas the iPhone 4S is going to get 9.3 next week, which is a 5-year-old device. So yeah, just let that sink in for a moment. It's definitely worth a consideration if you're going to buy these two phones. But that is going to conclude my comparison of the iPhone 6s and the Samsung Galaxy S7. Hope you enjoyed this video. It took a little while to make this, so yeah, other YouTubers such as Everything Apple Pro and those kind of people do a way better job at this than I do, but I kind of wanted to make my own little video just because. So there you are. There's a comparison of two of the best smartphones on the market. Hope you like this video, and I'll see you guys later.